Hi, my name is Michael Rahal. I'm an international master and also a FIDE trainer. And I'm here to present a short video where you'll be able to learn how to annotate your games with Chessbase 14. And hopefully you'll get to know many of the useful functions of the program which will help you improve your game and learn with the best masters in chess. See you soon. So the first thing we're going to do is choose the database where we're going to save and analyze our game. In my case, I have two databases, Rahal Classic for my classical games and Rahal Rapid for my rapid and blitz games. So we'll choose Rahal Classic and we'll open a new board using the icon in the home menu. So let's choose a board here. Now we have an empty board and we need to introduce the different moves that we've played on our game. I'm going to choose a game I played with Grandmaster Victor Bologan in 2005, as it gives me a chance to use the different functions of analysis. So that game started off with e4. I was playing with the white pieces and I used the mouse to introduce the moves slowly on the chessboard, making sure I don't miss any of the moves because I'm copying them from my score sheet. So I introduce the first moves, and for the moment we have a Sicilian defense on the board. So we have finally introduced all the moves of the game. We can see them on the right here, and also I've introduced my name, my full name, Victor Bologan's full name, his ratings, the tournament where we played this. In this case it was a team match between Avignon and Gonfreville in top 16 of the France team championship, played in 2005. All the important information of the game to make sure this stays in our file. Now I would like to use some of the functions of Chessbase to analyze this game. So what can I use? Well, I can start off using the arrows of the keyboard to go through the different moves. And as soon as I see a move I want to annotate, I can use the different signs and symbols that are on the right here at the bottom. I can put an exclamation mark for a good move, or I can put an error or mistake mark for a bad move. Two very good moves depending on the different moves. I can also use these symbols to choose the different advantage. If I have a bigger advantage, a smaller advantage, I have the different symbols. Also, complicated game, different symbols I can use. And if one of the symbols is mistaken, I can just delete it very quickly. Also, I can introduce variations. For instance, here instead of b5, a very common move is queen c7. And I could possibly put here a variation and introduce some new moves. And at the end, use an exclamation mark or whatever I decide to use for annotating the move. In the insert menu at the top, we have all sorts of different options that can help us analyze the game. We can even put text before or after the move. For instance, here we could choose the different language, and we could put, after castling, I think my position is better. For instance, if I like to put this annotation, there you go. It's already in the text and will stay there afterwards. I can even insert a diagram in an important position. That gives me a chance to have a small diagram if I decide to print the game afterwards. I can even bring up the annotations palette, which, as you can see, is very similar to the signs and symbols at the bottom, but gives us some extra options to analyze the game, some different symbols. And also here in the menu I have all the different evaluation signs and symbols that I need, if any is needed. Also ways to choose to reorder the variations, to enter a null move, to put different variations, end and start variations, clean up variations, many different commentary options. So when I finish annotating, the game should be more or less like what you're going to see now. So now the game has been annotated, and I did this in Spanish language, that's why the text is in Spanish, but it's exactly the same for English. And as you can see, I've also introduced some games which are very similar to the ones the one that was played on the day of the game tournament. As you can see, there's a lot of symbols, a lot of exclamation marks, a lot of different symbols that give me a good idea of how this game was played, and a lot of written explanations which are very important for me to remember how I played this game. And if I want to study this with one of my students or show it to one of my friends, all of the explanations are here. So this is very, very good. Now, some of the different options we can use when analyzing. So we have the analysis menu that gives us some options of analyzing the game tactically or with deep analysis. For instance, the tactical analysis will detect blunders and small tactics in the game, which is very useful. We also have the report. This is one of the main menu of Chessbase. I like this a lot, Chessbase 14. For instance, using the novelty annotation, the program will give us the novelty of the game and also the last most important game played with a variation. Here, for instance, it gives us that knight d1 was a novelty, and it offers us a game between Karpov and Skurin, played in Novosibirsk 2001, with rook f3, which maybe could have been a superior move than knight d1. We'll see this afterwards. Also, by using the same players icon, if we click here, the computer and the database will give us many other games played by the same players. For instance, here it indicates that myself, I've played this variation many times with interesting results against some strong players. But also, even more importantly, it gives us the games of Bologan played with this variation, both with white and black. So obviously, Victor had a lot of experience in this game. Now, this is very useful if we are preparing for a player, or if you want to see if the game was played at a higher standard. It's very useful, the same players option, as long as there are relevant games in the database. If we want to classify the opening, we can use the opening classification theme. This icon is here. We click on it, and it will immediately take us to the theoretical lines, where we can see all the different moves and many of the games that have been played with this variation. That's one way of classifying the opening. The other way is by using the reference here in the menu on the right. For instance, if we choose this position here and we put reference, the computer will scan the database and give us all the main games that have been played with this position, the different options of moves with the frequencies, the scores, and the best players that have played this variation. Also at the bottom, many games which we can choose. As you can see, my game with Bologan is right here. Now, one of the options that I like a lot and I use a lot is this one here called similar instructions. So for instance, if we choose this position here, we can see, or this position here, we can see that there's a pawn on h3, a black pawn, in my castle king. So if we use similar structures, which we're going to click now, and we add the pawn here, we can use this structure of the Sicilian to find out how many games are played, not of the opening, but of the middle game structure. And this will allow us to improve our knowledge on the specific structure of the Sicilian with a black pawn in h3. It takes a bit of time, as you can see, but this is an extremely good function that I'm sure you'll appreciate. Here it goes. Now, there you go. And we can see that it has given us many moves. And the nice thing about this function is that if we click on each of the games, it takes us straight away to the position where the pawn is on h3. And if you can see, it's very similar to my game. The Karpov game we mentioned before, here it is, with all the moves. And many other Grandmaster games, which as you can see, are very similar. Now, by studying these games, I can get a very good idea on how to play this position if it comes up again in my games, and the way different Grandmasters treated the position. For instance, here's a Gavrikov game. He's a very strong player, so this would obviously be a good idea for me to look at. Nichbo is a very good Sicilian player, another game here. And even down the bottom here, Tiger Hillop Person, one of my favorite players, played this, and I can just look at this game and see. If it's an interesting game for me, then what I can do is by restoring my own game, click on the right hand side and copy the game's notation. And now this game will be inserted in my own game. So that's very useful, and it allows me to keep these games. The Karpov Zirin game is already in there. I can add the Gavrikov game as well. I can just keep adding games and they will be added to my game, and hopefully, as you can see, now Karpov is added twice, and this will give us a good idea. Here's the Blem game and the game of Gavrikov. All the games, the Hilap person game, they've been inserted in my game. And at the end, we have a very, very nice and very long game. We can add also some diagrams using the option at the top. For instance, insert diagram at the critical moments of the game. And as you can see, this will be a huge advantage for you if you learn to use the Chessbase to analyze your own games, fully annotate them using the different options. And of course, if at any moment during the game you need to check with the computer, with the engine, to make sure you're doing okay, then you can add, for instance, Fritz 16 or maybe Stockfish. I like to use Fritz 16 generally. And here we go. By adding it at the bottom of the screen, we can get all the useful information of how I was doing at every moment of the game. I can even check with online computers. Here, for instance, Ralph Clare have already analyzed this game at even a deeper depth than my own analysis, and will give me an even better conclusion of what the computer thinks about my game. So, hopefully you enjoyed this analysis, and I hope you can have great success with your own Chessbase 14 in analyzing your own games. See you soon.